Well, welcome to the Inspiration Incubator. Mina, how are you?
I am wonderful.
Good. I am so excited because today people don't realize not only are you royal, not only are you the creative director, not only are you a mother and just so many amazing things, you are family to me. Okay?
Oh.
Let's take people back, Mina. Let's take people back to Columbia Avenue in
Oh,
West Philadelphia and just some of your memories. I know you have maybe some memories of my grandfather and us just out in front of your grandmother's home, in between Aunt Chrissy home. It was this big, beautiful cherry tree, and we used to climb that tree and eat those cherries and have a good time. What's some of your favorite memories, a memory or two from back in the day?
you know what? My favorite memories of our experiences are your my favorite memories are with your mom, like being in
Yeah,
the Y. Like your mom used to take us to the Y and we used to swim. And I
yeah.
think I mentioned this to you before. Your mom used to make the best fried egg sandwiches.
Girl, that's one of her specialties, okay?
Yes. So, and your and brothers and just all being together. I think we just kind of like enjoyed each other's company. It wasn't
We
so much
really
a
did.
group or something.
Your family has always been such a blessing in my life, and who would have thought that you would have just blossomed into the woman that you are, and that not only is this interview just so heartfelt and felt and touching to me because of our roots, but just I mean, you have just blossomed. And
Oh,
we
yeah.
still have so many things in common. That's the blessing
We
in
do.
that,
We
you know?
absolutely do.
So with the lifestyle brand, okay, Royal Fulani,
Yeah.
let's just go back to when you were in school and why education was so, you know, paramount in your household. Because Dr. Auntie Claudette Taylor, okay, that's just always been important to her. And
Yeah.
just share some memories of her talking to you about the importance of education and, carry us through your college experience. What does that look like?
So my mom was always pro education. From I can't remember a time when she wasn't. Um, Probably, she just had she had a lot of a drive. She was determined. She started off as a secretary at Community College of Philadelphia, and then she worked her way up to become a dean. And so she just was extremely ambitious, and she, of course, imparted that to me. Um, I think one of the things about education was my mom always saw that as like the key. That was like the thing that you needed to get to that next level of whatever it was professionally that you decided you wanted to do. And it was a symbol of respect and
Yeah.
honor. And then also, she always would say, that's something that no one could ever take away from you. So, once you got an education, all of that knowledge and information and the degrees was something that, no one would ever be able to take away from you. And you could um, chart your path with that. So, moving forward, I started off as at Community College of Philadelphia. I started off in first going there for high school for like a few programs. I was in the ACE program, which no longer exists. I wish it was still in existence so other kids could have an opportunity to take advantage of that.
Yes.
Um, then after that, I basically went through the process of going through CCP and getting my associates. I was in the arts program, so I went through that process as well. Then I graduated from CCP and I went to Moore College of Art and Design, which is an all women's art and design school in Philadelphia,
All right.
not too far away from community college, probably like 15 minutes walking distance. Um, my experiences at Moore were similar to what I experienced at CCP. It was very small. It was very um, female empowered oriented. Everything was about, women in the arts because women weren't really recognized in the arts as much until probably like, I can't even say when. I can say like the history of fine arts doesn't really have a lot of dynamic female artists. Everyone knows Frida Kahlo, everyone knows Mary Cassatt. But I think more was like important because we got to decide like how we were going to take art and make a profession from that. So most of the time,
Yes.
fine artists are, it's not looked at as a job, it's looked at as a talent or a gift that you eventually turn into, some type of like financial something financially lucrative.
Yeah.
So more is more about professional design, which I didn't know that you could be a fashion designer professionally until I went to more. I knew of fashion designers, but most of them were self-taught.
Right.
I started out as like a runway model in Philadelphia from the age of 14 to 28, and I kind of got to see the insides of that from the perspective of a model, which I really didn't care for. I
Right.
enjoyed it while it lasts, but I wanted to be on the opposite side, the more creative side.
Right.
So I went through the process and I was very determined, very ambitious. I was a little bit older than most of the girls that were there. So I was very focused.
Mm.
So whereas like, for instance, as a junior or a third year design student, you would usually do an internship in New York with a design house, like a well-known design house. I started when I was a second year student. So
Mm.
that way, like I really felt like I was coming out of school with experience, which a lot of college students don't. So you come out with a degree, but you don't necessarily come out with an experience. So I really encourage students to intern while they're
Mm.
in college. You could always parlay that into your first job outside of school once you
Right.
graduate. Um, so I interned pretty much as I possibly could. I did shoe design. My first internship was at Alfred Angelo, which is no longer in existence. It was a huge bridal design firm.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
then my first really big introduction to the New York scene was I was an intern at Tommy Hilfiger.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the one thing I didn't see, like that discouraged me a little bit, I didn't see a lot of people of color on
That
that
part.
side of fashion design.
And I
So
wanted to touch bases, not to
yeah,
distract because you're on a roll, but I wanted to touch bases because we do have plenty of African American children who are interested in, you know, the arts, design, and all of those things. When you were interning with Tommy Hilfiger's company, and that is a brand that many of us support,
yeah,
um, what was that like? Just going into, I guess, the business meetings
right.
or having to assist and, take care of some responsibilities that weren't necessarily something you were accustomed to, but you may have had some, just a little exposure because when you're on the
Yeah,
New York scene, that's a different vibe.
yeah,
New York never sleeps, honey. Uh,
yeah.
so what was that like?
You know what? It was. I learned a lot. Any experience I go into in the design industry was um, like I said, there weren't a lot of people of color, and there weren't a lot of people of color in assistant or associate design positions or head design positions. So most of us were like the handful of us that worked here that were black and brown. We were interns or assistant designers, which is like an entry level position.
Hmm.
Um, I always take those experiences and I'm like I'm absorbing everything I can get. So I would say what I took away from Tommy was I um, had the experience of actually interacting with him, and it was a family run business. So his sister worked there. His brother was like in marketing and promotion. So it was a family run business.
Right.
So I actually worked in a junior jeans division, and I got to work up under his sister. So I'm a gleaner. So like even though yeah, if there's like it's very I'm gonna say the fashion industry is a little cutthroat. It's very cold. For me, it's very, very
Bring
cold.
it. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a people person. So like when I go in, it's like, I want to always create that community or family oriented type of feeling.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and when you work in fashion, a lot of times it's not like that. It's like we got something to do, we need to do it, people are not necessarily the nicest, or they don't necessarily get along because one, there weren't a lot of positions available for people of color. So you
Right.
always feel like you're competing with each other to get into those
Mm,
spaces,
wow.
um, which is hard. It's
Yes.
better now. I really love how the fashion industry is evolving now, especially for
Yes.
designers and up and coming young designers. And we can thank social media for that because
Yes.
um, just getting to see people and know people and their talent and their gifts and their creativity. We didn't have that then. It was like unless you worked for someone,
Mhm.
or unless you knew someone, then you could, kind of get your foot in the door. But now,
Yes.
you can, do your own fashion show, pop up somewhere, and then you get seen, and then you get a
Yes.
million
Get that.
views, and you
You
get
have a
that
chance to
kind
be
of like, yeah,
exposure.
get that connection, which I really love that.
Yes.
I think for me, my time in the industry, I knew I said, okay, I also wanted a family. So I knew like, okay, working in New York, the long hours, 9 a.m., 10 a.m. to like, during fashion week, 11 p.m. or, 2 a.m. I had friends who were like, okay, staying overnight at, other friends' houses. Some friends were commuting from Philadelphia because they couldn't afford to live in New York because New York was very expensive.
So expensive. Ooh,
Yeah, and
the cost of living.
the entry level salary for most designers was not a lot. It
Yeah.
was like I would say it was maybe mid 20s.
Yeah.
You were lucky if if your beginning salary was like, kind of like in the 30s, starting in
Mm-hmm.
the 30s. But most people who lived in New York and were just starting in the fashion industry, you either lived in a borough or you lived in New Jersey and just commuted every day into the city. Um, but I kind of wanted more than that. I wanted connection. I wanted family. I wanted to feel like, I was going home every day and I had, something to look forward to besides my job.
Yes.
So the creative part I absolutely love. Um, the inner workings or the environment or that energy that, a lot of times working in New York, you had that go, 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 go. I really didn't like that a lot. So I kind of struggled with that.
Wow.
But coming back from New York, and I eventually, went to graduate school, got my master's degree, and started actually teaching at the college that I went to, which was Moore.
Come on now.
So yeah, so I really felt like I wanted to empower other young creatives who were just kind of getting started, who were coming into the game, and share the knowledge that I had. I had prior to that, I had taken a position in London as a trend consultant. I really love that, but also
Yes.
it's difficult for anyone who's outside of that citizenship to get a job in in Europe. You have to have citizenship, or you have to be have some type of connection. So the job that I took there was temporary, and then I came back home to the U.S. and then I started teaching at Moore.
Yes.
So I was at Moore for a little over, I want to say 16 years. Um, really loved my time there, working with the girls, empowering them to move on to the next level as far as like their creativity. I taught third level design students. So they were like a year away from graduating. They were a semester away from doing their internships in New York and LA, London. So I got to kind of like, be hands on with them, helping them prepare for that time. After Moore, I actually worked for the Charter High School for Architecture and Design, and I helped develop an actual fashion design program that was based off of industry standards.
Oh wow.
Um, and I pretty much taught everybody. I taught ninth grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade. That was interesting and it was fun at the same time.
Yeah.
So um, it was a good time because there's a lot of young creatives who are, I'm going to say, under the age of 20.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think because we think of high school as kind of like, it's most of the time academic, but what Chad did was Chad allowed you to look at design more as a profession. So not only did we offer fashion design, we offered architecture, product design, graphic design, photography, but it was all based off of how you would do that as a profession.
Mm,
So instead of it just being fine arts, which is great and the foundation pretty much for everything, it
mhm.
was more a professional design program for high school students.
Wow.
Um, so that's kind of like where things COVID hit, and unfortunately, the school closed permanently, not due to COVID, but some other issues that were going on the inside that not everybody who was working there was aware of. But after that, I just decided like I wanted to do design, but I wanted to do it on my own terms.
Right.
So I felt like I was being, everything I do is it has to be prayerful. Like I can't make a move without something being prayerful.
Come on now.
Yeah, and as a creator, sometimes we can be a little all over the place, and it's like, hey, let's try this and let's try that.
Yeah,
So, being a wife and a mother, um, those two things are, paramount for me. It's a priority for me, and those are the things that I keep in the forefront. And then everything else comes after that.
I know that's right.
Yeah.
I want to rewind a little bit though.
Okay, go ahead.
So let's say when you came back to Philadelphia, or when you were in between, just moving and shaking while you were in New York City, when did you meet your husband? And how did you
Oh,
know he was the one before we jumped into Royal Fulani and all the, intermakings with that? How did you know he was the one?
so you know what? I met my husband. I had been married before and went through a divorce, and I was just really like focused on being more self aware, just getting more into where I wanted to be mentally, spiritually, and physically, and really just kind of like working on myself.
Yes.
I am a member of Sharon Baptist Church, which is in Philadelphia.
I love Sharon
Uh,
Baptist. I've been here forever. When I come back home, I'm definitely going to come visit.
yeah. And my husband was also a member there as well. And we were in a lot of the same ministries together. So he was going through something very similar to what I was going through. And we were both coming out of having been divorced, and just really trying to like, I want to say, have a tighter connection spiritually and be
Yes.
more in tune with what God had for us and what was next. I think we were both just in ministry. We were just working. We were doing things with Sharon Shares, which is like a ministry that basically provides like food for the homeless during Thanksgiving and does other things throughout the year um,
Yes.
for those who are displaced. And that's just for those who have a need.
Yes.
We both were like, attending everything. We were like eating everything up. Like we were both going to like different ministries. We were both doing different, but at the same time, we kept kind of just like coming into each other's space in different ministries.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and at that point, I was just really just focused spiritual. I was like, this is, I'm doing this. This is what I'm doing. My blinders are on. I'm just focused on me and what I need to, work on within myself. And so, and he was in that same frame of mind. We just kind of started talking as friends through
Yeah.
ministry. And then we actually talked on the phone for a couple months because I was like, I'm just not up for the shenanigans,
Girl, I know.
So we talked on the phone for a few months, and then I believe it was like the very first day of 2007, and he was like, would you like to go out? I'd like to take you out. Um, and I was like, sure. So we went out. Nothing was open. So we ended up at IHOP, and we just talked. We just really were just enjoying each other's company. Um, we were friends first, so that was like extremely important to me.
Yes. Yes.
And we just both had we were like-minded in a lot of things that we wanted spiritually. Our walk was very similar. Um, as far as like the things that we wanted in the future, family. We both wanted to be married again, but we were like, let's take our time. Um, and we just really, I think one of the things that was important to us is that we had other people from ministries that we trusted who were really kind of keeping an eye on us. And I really like that because we
That
were being accountable.
accountability,
Yeah,
accountability.
we're being
Yes.
accountable. Like we had like some really phenomenal like leaders seriously who were just kind of like, okay, how are you guys doing? They would check in on us. We had, we would spend time in a group together. So we just, I mean, we was grown. So we were like, okay, we're not going to play these games. Like I knew what my weaknesses was. He knew what his were, and we just were not willing to like cross those boundaries with each other.
Come on now.
So yeah, so we put different things in place where we just kind of like felt like we wanted to do this different than what we had done.
Mm.
So we started dating. We dated for a year. After a year, he proposed, and then after a year, we got married.
Oh,
So
that's beautiful.
yeah, and we're a beautiful blended family.
I see that. I'm there for all the photos. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, um, and I think one of the things that like I had to realize as a woman is like, okay, meaning you have these different roles. You're a wife, you're a mother, you're a professional, but there are different hats that I wear, and my priority first and foremost is to my husband. Like he,
Come
he
on.
he comes first. Like
Yes.
that goes without saying. Like
Yes.
there have been times when I've like left work. If he was sick, I'd be like, okay, I gotta go.
Girl, I know, that's a whole nother conversation, but
Yeah,
for, as a woman who grew up in a household, my grandparents being married forever, and then my parents not knowing how to make things work,
right.
although they were still married until the day my mother passed. You have to put your husband first, and when he is connected with God, that's not an issue because he understands that, you need time to baby your babies if you have babies. And he understands that you need to, plant seeds in your career if you have a career. And he's there to help support you and to help create balance in your life. So that was key what you said about that. I just wanted to support that.
That's important. I think a lot of times I think as women, we have children and I ask myself, I'm like, okay, I hear a lot of women say, well, I'm kind of like, I'm losing myself. I don't know who I am outside of my kids. I don't know who I am outside of my husband. And I think it's important that you have to create those lanes, and you have to create a lane for yourself as well. Because if you're not good, you're not going to be able to, you know, take care of your husband in excellence and take care of the kids in excellence. You have to be good. And I
Yeah.
remember one time, like, I'm a proponent for therapy. And
Mm.
that's huge for me. Like, I think as women, a lot of times we've experienced trauma, we've gone through certain things, and we just never get that step into that space where we get healed from those things. And
Yeah.
so then we take those things into a marriage, or we take it into motherhood. So I remember one time the therapist was like, it's just like being on a plane. If the plane's going down, what do they say? Put your oxygen mask on first, and then put the oxygen mask on to the person who's next
That's
to you, whether
right.
it's your child or whomever it is. I think that's so important. As women, we have to be self-aware. We've got to know, like, what are those things that we need to work on so that we can be
Mhm.
better in the other areas, and most importantly, the best we can be for ourselves. Um,
Yes. Those are
yeah,
the two top components. The two top components in us not flourishing is self-sabotage and not having that self-awareness. And
yeah,
for me as a woman, I'm very self-aware. So much so that I know my body. My mother taught me, how my mother was, she was a handful, but she taught me so many things. Nobody should know your body like you, you
yeah,
know. You have to focus on yourself, self-management, how are you managing your home? How are you managing
yeah,
your time? All of those things, and then everything else will fall in place. So
yeah.
you have to focus.
Um, I think it's balance. It's all about balance. If you don't have balance, like everything has to be, put in perspective. Like if you do too much of one thing,
Whew.
the other things suffer. So
Yes.
And also, you want to represent that to your kids. It's like,
Yes.
okay, this is what mom is mom, but at the same time, mom is also, you know, a woman, and I go on dates with dad, and dad and I have date night, and mom gets dressed up, and mom looks
Yes.
sexy, and all. So
Yes.
like, but then when I'm mom and I'm picking my daughter up from school, it's like, okay, I'm in sweatpants and
Yeah.
joggers or whatever, but then as a professional, that's a whole nother role as well. So
Absolutely.
I think it's all about balance, but you can't let one of those things, overwhelm you. You have to like put everything in its proper perspective, and you have to like balance out being a mother, balance out being a wife, balance out being a professional. We
Absolutely.
all know like our jobs a lot of times can take over, and then the household struggles.
Yeah.
So for me, that's just not an option. I know, once my husband and my kids are good, everything else is smooth. Once
Yeah.
I know, like I have the time to be able to, my husband calls it your me time, because
Yeah.
he knows, like he'll be like, okay, you're going to the gym. Yeah, he knows those times. He knows exactly what are those things that I do. Um, and then he knows when I can, pour into myself. It's like he knows when you come back to me, I'm getting you
Cool.
fully and completely.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's so
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you for that tidbit as a wife and as a
important.
mother. We definitely can take some advice from that. Now, as it relates to Royal Fulani, tell us how you knew the name and then the brand. I love your logo, the woman wearing the lioness at the top of your head. And when I say royalty, it just dawned on me, and I'm a take a little turn here. In the United States of America, oftentimes, I'm an educator as well. People tend to think that everyone who is African American is directly linked to relatives who were enslaved.
Right.
And with that mindset, it's very narrow because they don't really understand that Africa is just so broad in
It is.
culture and customs, and it's the largest continent in the world that not all Africans are linked to slavery, not all African Americans who are in the United States, even when slavery started or even now, not all have relatives who were enslaved. Can you touch on that just a little bit as it relates to your family?
That, you know what? Because as you know, like I was born in Dakar, Senegal. My dad is Senegalese. Um, and I was there in 2019, and I just had this yearning to know more about like my family, their background. I think traveling back and forth from the US, because my mom is American, to Senegal, during the summers and spending that time with my dad and his family. Um, that was just normal for me. Like, it was like family. But I think this time when I went back, it was different because I was there to do something, and I didn't know what it was I was there to do. I was almost being spiritually led to like find some things and hear some things and discover some things about my family that I never knew.
Come on now.
So, I started talking to my dad about more like, okay, who is my grandfather and my grandmother and my great grandfather, and um how was our family, like what did we do, what was our our did we have professions. So one of the things I found out was my grandfather was an African chief of our village. I didn't know that. I just was like, okay, I never met my grandparents. Like by the time I was born, he was already deceased.
Hmm.
So it was important for me to to know more about him. So my dad was telling me more about him, but then I kind of wanted to know more about our background as far as like the slave trade, because
Hmm.
in Senegal there's a port, it's Gorée Island, and it's actually where a lot of the slaves were taken
Yes.
out of.
Hmm.
Um, because it's right on the west coast, and Senegal is only 7.5, 8 hour flight across the Atlantic from New York, which a lot of
Wow.
people don't know. It's very close.
Yeah, I didn't realize that either.
Yeah, so it made sense to me that that was a direct route to, of course, the East Coast of the United States and some other places. So I had been to Goree many, 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 many times. And it's probably one of the places that when I go, I always have to go there before I leave. I always, as I got older and I started going there, I would go there and I would just want to take something back from there as far as spiritually, like, because it is an extremely spiritual place. It's actually a place where people live. There's residents there who've been there since forever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so this time, when I went, it was different. Like it was more, I felt um clearer about like who I was. I felt clearer about what my purpose was professionally, spiritually, more connected and grounded to just Senegal in general. And then asking my dad questions about, how that affected that side of my family, and to hear him say that there was no one from our side of that side of our family that were taken out as slaves.
Come
So,
on. Say that one more time. Say
so
that
there
one.
was no one from our side, from that side of my family, that were taken as slaves.
Come on.
So I never knew, to be honest with you, it might sound silly, I never knew that was even a thing. I knew that most Africans knew that there were Africans who weren't enslaved, that there were certain families that went untouched by slavery. Um, but to hear that my dad's side of the family was one of those families, was interesting, and it was empowering, and
Yes.
it was emotional too, because there's so many
Yes.
families who didn't have that experience.
Yes.
Um, so I left with that, and I came back home, and I was like, okay, it kind of it spilled into what I was going to do professionally. Um, it was inspiring. Like I was talking, I wrote something as a post, and I was talking about how when I was on the boat going to Goree, and I was like, the waves, like it's a beautiful experience when you're on the ferry that takes you back and forth. It's like you're going across the water, and there's the waves, and you're coming into the port, and you get to see the island. There's like these kind of like multicolored homes, but um, there's this connection when you get there, and it's very spiritual, and it's very powerful. So when I went this time, it was almost like I always say, like, people talk about your ancestors, and I feel like we are very much connected to them. Even as Christians, we're very
Yes.
much connected to those who came before us.
Yes.
And I felt like those who were taken from there was like, okay, what are you going to do? You're powerful in what God has given you as far as talent and creativity. Like, now what are you going to do with that? So just hearing that and being inspired by, hearing the story of my dad when he was talking about, our family, and talking about my grandfather who was a chief. And, it seemed like everyone had some form of almost like a regal presence or a royal presence. So when I came back home, Fulani is actually the culture, or the I would say the tribe that my family comes from. And
Come on
there's
now.
different names, and there's Fulanis all over Africa,
Yeah.
but specifically that's what we're called. Um, so just that connection with my grandfather and the family from Senegal, and then understanding who I am as one, a woman of God. So the royal part actually comes from the Bible. We're a
Mm,
royal priesthood,
mm,
so that's where the royal part actually comes from. The
mm.
Fulani comes from, my
Yeah.
African heritage. And then the whole idea of it being a lifestyle brand, like I'm a fan of B. Smith. I don't know if you know who that is or not.
Yes. I love it. I was heartbroken to hear
Yeah.
about the
So
situation, but yeah.
I was a big fan of B. Smith. And I felt like she was gonna be, the next the Black Martha Stewart. Um,
Yes.
so I followed her, and I watched kind of what she did, and how things were like. She was in cuisine, and I believe she was a runway model at one point in time.
I believe so. I
Yeah.
believe so. If she, I'm
So
not sure if she was a runway model, but I know she did some modeling.
yeah, so she had style. She did the home decor. She did
Mhm.
cuisine. She did like all of these wonderful things. And so like I really admired that. So she was my inspiration for the whole like lifestyle brand perspective. But because there's very few lifestyle brands like a Martha Stewart or like a Magnolia that
Hmm.
are actually owned by people of color, black and brown people. So it's important for me to do that. Like I could have done fashion
Hmm.
easily,
Right.
um, but I feel like people, we normally see African textiles and prints in fashion. We typically
Hmm.
see them in fashion.
We do all
Yeah,
the
so
time.
to now see them in like everyday products, like, things for your home, things for your
Yeah.
pet, things for, your mantle. So I really wanted to expand upon that. I didn't want to do just apparel. Eventually, we will touch on apparel, it'll be specialty apparel.
Hmm.
But we really just wanted our foundation to be about, everyday products that we now present to you, in African print. So
Yeah.
we're getting to experiment a lot with fabrication, which hasn't been done before. Most African textiles are on cotton, are printed on
Mhm.
cotton, or so now we're kind of we're experimenting with glass, we're experimenting with metal, we're experimenting with different forms of fabric outside of
Mhm.
cotton. And with those different fabrications, you could pretty much, create anything. We have wallpaper. It's really been a phenomenal journey. I'm enjoying it. I really am. It doesn't feel like work to me. It doesn't. It does
I
not.
mean, it's just amazing the fabrics and everything. I just can't wait to get my whole little room area designed. I have a few things I'm working on, but I mean, it's just
Okay.
the colors are just beautiful, and your ensemble today is just
Oh,
amazing.
thank you.
You look absolutely gorgeous. Um, this time with you has, it's been just amazing. And who would have thought, my sister, cousin, friend, grandma was next door, whose mama lived way down the street. When I would walk down the street and come into your home, I remember one particular time I wanted to play. I was ready to play, but you had to wash the dishes, honey, and used to take that stool
Yep.
and wash those dishes one piece at a time. And this time, girl, I was trying to hurry up and help you because we had things to do. Okay, but who would have thought? And this is why it's important for us to pour into our children
Yeah.
and to give them the exposure that they need, because time is an illusion. It's escaping us all.
It
And day
is.
by day, we're all growing and getting older and younger at the same time, because that's just a mindset thing to a degree. Your creativity doesn't become stifled unless, of course, your health does. But we have to utilize our time to fullest extent, impact our community and our children. We really do. So,
Yeah.
is there anything else you wanted to share with us this evening?
No, I love you.
Oh, I
You
love you
are
too.
amazing.
Mhm.
I'm just like, in all of everything that God is doing, using you to do. Um,
Aw,
just keep being phenomenal. I'm my fellow creatives who are black and brown. I keep saying like, this is our time. Like
yes,
this is
yes,
our time. Like you only get one life and
yes,
you have to live it to the fullest, and you have to, especially when it comes to your profession, you have to do that thing that you
yes,
love and that thing you feel passionate about. Like I'm seeing so
yes,
many other creatives, whether it's culinary, whether it's fashion, whether it's in general illustration, whatever it is, like they're
yes.
really, I think also the pandemic has like got us rethinking things and rethinking how we're
Absolutely.
living and
You see
rethinking,
me out here. Oh, I'm
yeah, what's
behind the scenes.
important.
These
Yeah.
lights, me hot, girl, these lights. Ooh, it's cute, but it's a little warm. I'm gonna have to put my ear on. I'm trying to tell
That's
you.
okay. So, it's got us rethinking things. It's bittersweet because I think a
Yes,
lot of people found their passion during the pandemic, but we lost a lot of amazing human beings.
we did. We
Um,
did.
and my condolences, of course, go out to anyone who's been affected by
Yes.
COVID. And I think it's been a time for us to really connect as a people,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been a time for us to reconnect, as human beings, just in general.
Yes. Yes.
and just to do, those things that we love and feel passionate about, but also to do our own work to get to where we
Yeah.
want to be mentally, spiritually, and physically.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'm proud of
Well,
you.
I love you, and I'm just so grateful for you and the woman of God that you are.
Thank
Give
you.
my auntie Claudette the
I
big
absolutely
kiss
will.
and Baba, okay? Give him a hug for me. Your daughter, your sister.
Oh.
I'm just so happy we had this moment and that I can share some of your story with the world.
Oh, thank you so much, Leona. I love you.
Thank you. Love you too.
Bye.
Bye.